treatment. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know you knew about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was interesting because I'm not the best patient. So uh, I learned a lot more about how studies
Okay.
trials can be designed better for patients, even though it's not
For
possible.
patients. Okay. So
Yeah,
did you
yeah,
sign the consent form?
yeah. E-consent. I did all of that stuff. Let me
E-consent.
change my
Okay.
Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Hold on one second. Change my Wi-Fi. I'm gonna get a better signal.
Okay.
One second, one second,
Mhm.
1 second. You'll lose me for a little bit, and now I'm back. Okay, good. Now I got a stronger signal. Yeah, e-consent. It was a virtual trial,
Okay.
and
So for how many days they have, they have the follow-up schedule for?
I don't know. I think I'm still in the study, but I'm not doing
Okay.
anything. I took a hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, and they checked my stool because the lady who
Okay.
does it, maybe she's watching now. I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
She analyzes the microbiome in the
Mm-hmm.
stool. And so as soon as I got diagnosed with COVID, I knew to call her because she has like 50 studies. So I knew she had one for me. And then she analyzed your microbiome, and then I got put on the hydroxychloroquine
Okay.
and the azithromycin.
Okay.
Initially, I was supposed to go on the ivermectin study, but
Mm-hmm.
my pharmacy ran out of ivermectin. And then rather than waiting, she said, let me put you in another study with
So
hydroxychloroquine.
how many times they have collected your samples?
One stool sample on day one before I started treatment, and then
Okay.
my final stool sample. I think I need to give it actually soon. We have to give our final stool sample soon. I think it's like around now actually. Thanks for the reminder. See, I'm not a good patient. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
pretty, I don't know. I'm not a good patient. They have to tell me. It's probably a lot of deviations with me as a patient.
Yeah, patients are like that only, right? So team members should inform you.
Yeah, I
This
think
is their
the
activities, right?
Carlos. Maybe he's watching Carlos and Mesquita.
Yeah, they have to follow up with you.
I think so. Yeah, they have
Oh,
to, and I'm supposed to do a diary, and I'm supposed to do all this stuff.
okay.
Um, but
What are
to
the
be honest,
all benefits they are giving to you?
what's that?
What are all the benefits they are giving to you?
Basically, I felt better in 3 days. From it's
Okay.
supposed to be a 5 day treatment, and it was in within 3 days I felt better. Honestly, the first hour I took it, I felt better. I don't know if it was like mental, but
Okay.
I felt better once I took the hydroxy and the azithromycin.
Okay.
Like in an hour, and my wife did the same because she had the same, so we were both in the same study.
Okay.
But thank God, I mean, it showed me like the importance of research too, because
Mhm.
thank God I'm even aware that I know there's a research option. I talked to somebody today. I was looking for an office space here in California for one of my
Okay.
clinics because we're moving to a bigger place. And I talked to the real estate agent, and he had COVID and he was hospitalized for like 2 weeks.
Oh.
And I said, well, what kind of medication they gave you? They didn't
Oh.
give him anything.
Oh.
The standard of care is like ventilator, or I think they were giving him the one of the drugs like standard of treatment, but and he had moderate to severe symptoms.
Okay.
But somebody like him doesn't know that, and most people are like this. They don't know that research is even an option.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're left with standard of treatment, which is nothing. I mean,
Oh.
here in the United States, India is probably the same thing.
Hmm.
Standard of treatment is you go home and you lock yourself away
Yeah.
for 2 weeks.
True. True.
Like this is, I mean, to me, I could have done this too, but I think my quality of life was better for those 2 weeks. And I
Mm-hmm.
think long-term effect, there's something with COVID with long-term effects.
Hmm.
I think when you're treated with medication, whatever it is, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, that you're actually killing the virus quicker so it doesn't linger because
Yeah.
standard of treatment, I know there's got to be better, and we need more studies, and we're doing a lot of studies,
True.
but the average person does not understand that clinical research is an option.
Yeah.
We tell these people all the time on the internet, and then the research sites that watch, that's their job to be it's their job to be evangelists to the
Yeah.
community.
Okay. Then Can we start now?
Yeah. So I brought guys in
Yeah,
India.
thank you. Yeah. We have seen you have this book. Very good
This is
one. Yeah.
look, this is my notes. This is the topic,
Yes.
site level dynamics.
Yeah, site level
And
dynamics.
India
Okay.
is my #3 market in the world for this book. So I love India. I love the entrepreneurial spirit. I love the attention to education over there. It's like no other culture in the world, in my opinion. I have to come visit at some point because I mean I'm just
Okay.
fascinated by this culture, especially
It
the
is available in Amazon also. It is
Amazon.
available
Yep.
in Amazon.
Yep.
So any special discount for us, for our students?
India is my #3 market for this book in the world. #3, US, Canada, and then India. It's amazing.
Yeah. So ebook is available, right?
Ebook, yeah, Kindle, physical, or I don't know in India if you guys have Audible, but we have an audiobook too,
Okay. Great.
which is the best, by the way,
Okay.
because it's like 2 books.
Okay. Okay, fine. So Shafak. Yeah. Shafak?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you can proceed.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Respected Principal, Mr. Priyadarshan Patil, our Managing Director, Mr. Mudassir Sheikh, the faculty members, and my dear friends. I extend a warm welcome to all of you at this guest lecture on practical aspects of clinical trials, site-level dynamics. It is my honor to welcome our speaker for today, Mr. Dan Spera from California, United States. Mr. Spera is involved in many aspects of clinical research industry. He has pursued Bachelor of Science in Molecular and Cellular Biology from the University of Arizona, United States. Mr. Spera runs a clinical trial website called The Clinical Trials Guru, where he discusses clinical trials in plain English. He is the co-founder of CRA and CRC Academy. In addition, he also partners with, consults, and advises for various clinical trial companies across the United States. It is an honor and privilege for us, sir, to have you with us today. I am sure we will be enriched by this session. Once again, I welcome all of you to this event. Now, I would like to request our Honorable Principal, Mr. Priyadarshan Patil, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Shafak. Good morning and good evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How's it going?
Yeah, that's fine here.
Good morning.
How about
guys.
you?
Happy Saturday. By the way, you guys are learning on a Saturday. That is very impressive, and that says a lot about Indian culture. So I'm very impressed with it.
Yeah. Sir, I heartily welcome on behalf of NIMR, that is National Institute of Management Research, Mumbai, India, for this prestigious moment. I find it to be my pleasure to attend this session with young minds and young minds of today's and future responsible clinical research professionals. So I feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to you again. Without wasting much of our time, I request you to begin with the session for which we all are waiting since it has been announced. So over to you, sir. Yeah. Thank you. Welcome once
Thank you
again.
very much. Thank you guys. And again, Saturday morning, amazing dedication you guys have to your craft. It's you guys will be very successful. Make sure you're on LinkedIn and you're networking with everybody on there because you guys have a lot going on over there in India. And this is the book. So chapter 4, site level dynamics. And by the way, put your questions in the chats, okay? And or feel free to just chat your questions. I'm on Instagram also, so they might have questions too, but it's for you guys. This is for you guys. So basically, I mean, what do you guys understand so far about sites? Like, do you have a good understanding of what's a research clinic, or you need me to start from the very beginning, the very basic, or you have an understanding of what's a research clinic?
We do have an understanding of clinical research, sir, like the basic one, like the various phases and what exactly clinical research is.
Okay, good. So I imagine in India, and this is why I really have to come over there, but I imagine from what I've read and from the colleagues that I've talked to, it's very similar to here. You have the private practice, you have the academic centers, you have the college, the teaching hospitals. So those dynamics might be different. You have the smaller sites, the medium-sized sites, the bigger size sites. In my opinion, okay, the closer you can get to a smaller clinic, like the smaller you can get, the better, because it's basically going to be a physician and his or her staff with you. If you can get in there at the ground level, you're going to be a generalist. What I talk about is the most important thing to do is to be a generalist. Learn how to be a generalist. So when you learn how to be a generalist, you're learning everything, all aspects. This is the only way that you're going to protect your career. Who knows what's going to happen with technology, with artificial intelligence? I mean, there's a lot of things on the horizon that we don't know about. But what I do know is that those who are generalists and understand how to do multiple functions are the ones that are going to be immune to everything. In a year like 2021, it doesn't matter because the industry is so busy. So your guys' job, you're in college right now, you're in university. Your job is to just get in the industry if you're interested in clinical research. Get in the industry in any capacity. If you have a choice between the smaller or the larger, you go with the smaller because it may not be as prestigious, but trust me, nobody cares about prestige if you know how to do 20 people's job in one clinic. You are going to have a job for the rest of your career. No technology is going to replace you. The problem I see when you go to the bigger sites and so you start getting into larger sites and universities and hospitals, they start to streamline everything. And they're doing this not because they care about you. The business doesn't exist to provide for you. The business exists to make a profit. So the larger they get, the more streamlined they get. So they're going to plug you in to a certain spot, and that's going to be your function. Okay, but what we teach in this book and what I'm going to teach you guys here is all the dynamics that's important from a research site level. So the smaller you go, the better it's going to be, because at the larger places, they're not going to have you look for these kind of things. For example, one of the first steps, if you're going to work at a research clinic, you've got to understand who's your PI. Sometimes your PI is going to tell you that we need to find colleagues of theirs. For example, if you're working with a family practice internal medicine physician, you may need to find a sponsor may require that your clinic has a cardiologist as a sub-investigator. Well, your clinician, your PI, maybe he's internal medicine family practice, is not going to have time to look for a cardiologist. That's going to be study coordinator. That's going to be somebody at the clinic that is going to have to do clinician outreach in the communities with cardiologists. And now your PI may know some people, may know colleagues, and he or she may point you in the right direction, but it's up to you to go do it, because the doctor they don't have time for this. Maybe they talk to their colleague and say, hey, we have a study, but then they don't know details. You have to go, you have to know the detail. So at the site level, what's the most important, first of all, is GCP, good clinical practice. That's the foundation. That's the umbrella, okay? After GCP is the protocol for the specific study. So those two, so the protocol is supposed to fit under the umbrella of good clinical practice. Underneath the protocol is going to be the particular SOP, the standard operating procedure of your particular site. Now, if you go to a very small site, guess what? You may have to be in charge of creating these SOP, right? I guarantee you at a university or a larger hospital, you're not going to do that. You may have to make an amendment to an SOP when a sponsor requests an amendment, but you're not starting from ground zero. So again, this is why I'm partial to working at the smaller the clinic, the better. I know even here in the United States, it's less prestigious. Everybody wants to work for Harvard. But you know what? You're going to learn a lot more, especially at your age. You guys are all young people. At your age, you're going to learn a lot more at the smaller clinic. And it's less competitive, too, to work at those places. Everybody wants to work at the fancy place. But at the end of the day, they don't realize that they're not learning. They're not maximizing their learning potential. So the clinician networking is one step. you have either a general medicine, family practice, general internal, that's the foundation. But then you surround them with specialists. So psychiatry, oncology, cardiology, you surround the family practice with specialists. Okay, that's typically, and I teach people here in the United States how to create their own clinics, like just from an idea. So I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who are interested in starting their own research clinics. Their first job is to go find the PI, the principal investigator, because without principal investigator, you can't have a study. So you should pick a family practice. Why? Because family practice, internal medicine, general practitioner, it opens up to the widest variety of studies that you can do. Okay, it gives you options. Now you can worry about specialists later, but if you're starting from ground zero, you need that pillar. The foundation is the general medicine family practice. They have a patient database. The hardest thing, the most difficult thing, and this is why sponsors love to do studies in India, because it's a big research naive population for the patients. Okay, so in India, we can actually get a lot of United States sponsors go there, research naive patient population. Now, the patients really trust their physicians, just like they do here in the United States. I don't think it's any different in India. They trust the physician. So if you have the physician on board and the specialists on board, the patients are going to be coming. You don't even need to deal with convincing the patients. The patients are already, if their doctor wants them to do it, they're going to consider very strongly to do the study. So this is when you have to know the fundamentals. You have to know good clinical practice. You have to really understand the protocol. I mean, really well, you got to know the protocol. And then you've got to know the site standard operating procedures. And if you don't know the site standard operating procedures, or if the site doesn't do standard operating procedures, okay, then you've got to create this stuff. All right, so here's the typical structure in the United States. I don't know, maybe I should have had slides, but I was told I didn't need slides, so we can show by like this way, old fashioned, okay? This is a book, guys, this is a book. So you have a private practice, you have a standalone research, okay? And then you have a hybrid of the two. In the United States, there exists some clinics that are just research. There exists some places, obviously, that are just private practice, no research. And then you have that sweet spot where they do both. And that's really what I like, is the private practice that combines with the research clinic, because now you have a hybrid site and they can do both. They see the private practice feeds the patients to the studies. Okay, so then you can start getting a lot of studies from the sponsors. And everybody familiar with clinicaltrials.gov? I hope everybody goes on clinicaltrials.gov. By the way, so clinicaltrials.gov is the portal here in the United States to look for studies. It's designed for patients to find studies. But here's the industry's best kept secret. All right, clinicaltrials.gov is one of the best places for you to network for your career. And all you guys, at least I think all you guys are interested in clinical research. Clinicaltrials.gov is the best place to do that. You type in, let's say you're interested in breast cancer. You go in there, you put breast cancer, you put India as the country. Boom, you're going to see all the studies currently going on in India with breast cancer. Half of those studies, when you click on them, they have the contact to the sponsor right there. The email, the phone number, what do you want? They don't put the WhatsApp, but they put everything else. Email, phone number, okay? You contact them, and you let them know exactly who you are. Hey, do you need doctors in India? I can actually help. Do you need patients? I have a good system here where we can get patients to the physician's offices. This is a great way to network, or whatever you're interested in. I mean, maybe you're just interested in in another angle to research. So you got to figure out the angle. Then once you find a physician that's interested, okay, or a sponsor that tells you, okay, go find me a physician in this area, and we'll work with you guys. Okay, so then you got to go look at the office, look at the layout. You typically need about 1,600 square feet for an average clinic. So you need about 3 exam rooms, and you need a lab room, and you need access to a centrifuge. And there's different kind of equipment there. There's frozen centrifuge, there's refrigerated IP, The IP storage is very important in clinical research, double locked. Okay, if it's ambient, you have to have temperature controlled. You have to have a min-max temperature log. You have to have ideally 24/7 surveillance of the investigational product, because what happens if there's an excursion, a temperature excursion? I mean, you have to know, okay, this is a potential deviation if there's a temperature excursion, so I need to be aware of this. You don't want to give the patients an IP that just went through a temperature excursion, all right, without getting the sponsor approval. And it has to be documented, guys. I hope you know this in research. If you know nothing else, know this. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. You have to document everything. I tell my employees all the time, you should document this. And they say, why? I just talked to the monitor. The monitor said it's okay. What's the problem? No, the problem is the FDA is going to come here in 5 years from now. You're going to be gone. You're going to be somewhere else. I'm going to be here because I'm the owner. I don't know what's going on with the study. And the FDA is going to ask me, well, what happened? I don't know. You talked to the monitor. Who knows you talked to the monitor? Document. If it's documented, you're saving either your future self, or at least be considerate for the employee that's going to follow you. Okay, because I've entered those situations when I started out as a study coordinator and I took over from some coordinator. I had no idea what's going on. Nothing was documented. Document everything. Okay, a phone call is not okay unless it's documented afterwards. And you can just write simple note to file. On January 23rd, I spoke to such and such. This is what they told me. Even better than that is email, of course. Okay. But you guys know this stuff, or okay? At least I hope you know this stuff. So temperature excursions important. Basic equipment. You don't need, even here in the United States, people always assume that to do research, you need fancy equipment, you need state of the art. You don't need this. What you need is the patience. That's really what you need, is the patience. Okay, you need simple things. And sometimes the sponsor give you this thing, like EKG machine. Sponsor usually provide this for you. Okay, you need blood draw chairs. If you're gonna do infusion, you need chairs for infusion. You need weighing scales. You need blood pressure, stethoscope, -20 Celsius freezer. Okay, you need a conference room, locking refrigerator, thermometers for everything, a centrifuge, an exam table, a weighing scale. Simple things. You don't need fancy. Now, of course, depends on the protocol. Some protocols have specific requirements. And in those cases, sometimes the sponsors are willing to provide this equipment for you, or they're willing to provide you a stipend to get it. But for the most part, 80%, okay, it's in the book. I don't know if this can be seen very well, but this, trust me, it's a nice infographic, okay, of all the things you need. And it's not a lot. Like you go to your typical doctor office, they have everything they need already to do research. Maybe they don't have -20 Celsius freezer. So what? You know, that's not a big deal. That's gonna stop you from doing research because you're afraid that you don't have this. That you don't need a lot of equipment to do research, okay? You need the patients. The sponsors care about only one thing, and that's, can you get us access to patients? We prefer the patients are research naive, and the researchers should know what they're doing, all right? But here's another best kept secret about research. As long as you're not making the major deviations that affect patient safety. Like, here's a perfect example. You randomize a patient that you shouldn't have randomized because they don't meet one of the inclusion-exclusion criteria. Sometimes that's a safety issue. Sometimes it's just a data integrity issue. You better hope it's not a safety issue, because that could cause real harm to the patient. So this is where I say you have to know the protocol really well. So as long as you're respecting patient safety, you don't need to be expert at running a clinical trial. Okay, your clinician, I always tell my doctors when they ask me, I work with a lot of research naive doctors. And they always ask me, well, you know, I've never done research before. I always tell them, look, I'm not asking you to do anything different than what you're doing. You're a physician. I need you to continue to be a physician. That's all I need. You're going to check lab results. You're going to check EKGs. You're going to make sure the patients, if they're experiencing side effects, you're going to document them. You're going to take them out of the study if they need to. I'm going to take care, me as the coordinator or the site director, I'm going to take care of all the details with the protocol. You as the doctor, the PI, you just make sure you continue to be a doctor. That's all I need you to do, because I'm not trained to be a physician. I don't know what's a potential side effect, and I don't know the nuances of when something might happen, you know, like a negative health outcome might happen to a patient. I don't know. I'm not trained. I'm not a physician. You are. So you do that. I do the protocol, all the details. Like I make sure the patient comes every 7 days, plus or minus 2 days of window, or whatever the schedule of assessments tells you. By the way, if you're a brand new coordinator, okay, as you guys like to say, fresher, you guys love that word, fresher. I'm a fresher. I get this word question all the time. Dan, I'm a fresher. I'm a fresher. So I'm learning that lingo. I'm learning the lingo from you guys. But if you are a fresher, okay, the first thing you do when you start a clinical trial, you look at the schedule of assessments in the protocol. Okay, skip all the other stuff. Go to schedule of assessments, and you see exactly. It's a chart. I have it here somewhere. Schedule of assessments. It gives you a chart exactly what visit and what assessments are done. Okay, maybe you guys seen this. I think you have, right? Schedule of assessment. So it's like a grid. Horizontal. On the horizontal, you have the visits: screening visit 1, randomization visit 2, visit 3, visit 4, visit 5, however many visits there are. And then vertically, you have all the assessments, and then you have a check mark next to what happens at what visit. That's what you need to know. You know, if you're a fresher, this is it. Okay, now your doctor's gonna know. Of course, you got to know inclusion exclusion criteria too, because you don't want to randomize somebody who doesn't belong. That's considered a major protocol deviation. So that's another thing that new people are worried about, research naive, whether they're coordinators or whether they're physicians, is they're worried of protocol deviations. The only protocol deviation you have to worry about is those that affect patient safety. Those are major deviations. Deviations are unavoidable. Okay, sometimes patients have to come every week plus or minus 1 day or 2 days, a very narrow timeline. Sometimes patient can't make it. That's technically a deviation. Okay, but that's not a major deviation. That's not affecting patient safety. A major deviation is keeping a patient in a study that shouldn't be in a study, or forgetting to dose a patient based on the protocol, how the protocol says to dose them. So those are the things you got to pay attention to. But at the end of the day, that's all about keeping patients safe. There's really nothing else. If you just go with that as your thesis, and if you really look at good clinical practice, and you guys are in university, you probably spent months studying good clinical practice, GCP. At the end of the day, I can save you all the time. It's keep patients safe. Keep them safe. Do no harm to patients. That's what good clinical practice is in the context of a research study, right? Patients' safety comes first, even before the researcher's desires or the sponsors or for the study itself. The patient safety comes first. That's it. That's GCP. Okay. I mentioned clinicaltrials.gov. It's also, besides networking and besides patients finding studies, it's a great way for you to find potential study opportunities for your investigators, for your physicians. So if you come across, when you graduate and you go in the real world, okay, and you find a doctor and you say, hey, I took this course in university, and this guy came from California and told me that I can find studies for you from America or from India. I mean, now you guys have Indian sponsored, you know, you can find these studies. It's just emailing, it's just networking, and you can find it. Remember what the sponsor care about. They care about patients, and they care about research naive patients, if possible, all right? And now with COVID, everybody wants COVID. There's so many COVID studies, it's out of control with COVID. So it's never been a better time to be research naive if you want to get into this industry as a coordinator, as a CRA, as a project manager, as a physician, whatever roles there are in research, never been a better time. Or to start your own company. And one of the things I really admire about Indian culture is the entrepreneurship there. I mean, it's amazing culture of entrepreneurship. So never been a better time than 2021 to get started into clinical research. So you guys are going to graduate at the perfect time. Okay, COVID is not going away. We're going to have to do now long-term studies, long-term safety, long-term efficacy for the vaccines. We're going to need more treatments. God forbid another pandemic happen, because now here's something people don't talk about. Okay, CRISPR, the technology for gene modification with the RNA splicing, that's basically like an open source for, it could be for good things, like they're talking about curing autism and things like that, but it could be used for nefarious things too, like, I don't know, making a virus. So I think we're entering the age of pandemic, unfortunately, whether it's natural or because of things like CRISPR, like the technologies. So I think COVID is just the beginning of, for the rest of our lifetimes, something that we got to get used to, you know. Some might be worse than COVID. Maybe they come every 10 years, every 15 years. I don't know. Maybe more often, right? But even COVID itself, COVID-19 is not going away. They call it COVID-19. It's already 2021. We're going to be busy for all of 2021, probably all of 2022 also, just because of COVID-19. All right. So who knows what's going to happen next? But you guys need to, if you get in now, you get the research experience. I really believe clinical research is one of the most safe industries and one of the most secure industries to secure a career or an entrepreneurial endeavor is clinical research, healthcare in general, but especially clinical research. Why? Supply and demand. Simple as that. We've never had more studies than we have now. In the history of clinical research, there's never been more studies than in 2020, and 2021 is brand new. So I think 2021 is going to break the record for 2020. Never been more study, and the amount of qualified people working in the industry is not increasing at the same rate. So that's supply and demand. By the way, even before COVID, we didn't have enough people qualified working in research. And now you throw in 20,000 in the United States, 20,000 more studies because of COVID. All right. And so now all these resources are being spread thin. So you guys are coming in, you're lucky, coming in at the perfect time, right? You're probably thinking it's horrible timing because COVID and economic reset and all this thing they're talking about. I think it's a great time for clinical research. For people in other industries, not so great. Hopefully they're buying Bitcoin or something, okay? Alcoa-C, you guys know about Alcoa-C? Attributable, you guys know? I'm gonna quiz you guys. You know? You're all fresher? Who knows Alcoa-C? Attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, and complete. Okay? These are the documentation standards that you need to know if you're working in clinical research. So I don't know if you guys learned that. Maybe in the chat. Let me know in the chat if you guys know what's Alcoa-C. If you know, I don't want to waste your time. If you don't know, I could go through it. But we can talk about Alcoa. Let me know, thumbs up, thumbs down, if you want to hear about Alcoa-C. You're probably already bored with this. Alcoa, you guys know? Attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, complete. I wish I can call on people randomly to ask them if you know. Okay, but attributable means, I'm just gonna go through it really quick. Attributable means, can you attribute this data to somebody at the research clinic? For example, if you're doing vital signs, you have to put initial and date of who did it. Okay, that's attributable. Why? Because if a regulator comes in to look at the data and they see, okay, well, we're not sure who this is. We don't know who it's attributable to. That's an Alcoa violation. Legible, it's common sense. You need to be read. And I don't know, and here in the United States, and probably it's the same thing in India, these doctor handwriting is awful. Okay. So it's probably the same thing in every country. The doctor, you can't understand anything they're writing. So all of them are violating legible. And actually, I tell my coordinators, and now we're switching to eSource. So it's making it easier because the doctor takes his cell phone and writes a note. So he can't scribble with this. Thankfully, he writes it clearly. So now it's getting better. But if your doctor still uses paper, then the coordinator should interpret with a note to file what it means, what they're saying, at least. Ideally, you want the doctor to write neater, but they're not going to do this. They're not going to listen to you. I've tried it. They don't listen. So the next best thing is a note to file that the study coordinator has to do all the work and research, by the way. If you haven't figured that out, that's the reality of research. Contemporaneous is the third principle, demonstrates that the data that's collected should be existing, occurring, and originating during the same time. Data can only be assumed credible if it is recorded and documented at the time of which a measurement or action is taken. In other words, you cannot take somebody's blood pressure and then you didn't bring anything with you. So then you remember what it was, okay? And then you're gonna go drink some coffee, and then you're gonna go eat a donut. And then by the time you come back to your desk, you forget what's the blood pressure. I think it was this. So you're gonna that's not contemporaneous, guys. You have to do it instantly. And this is with eSource. eSource actually solves a lot of these problems. It solves, matter of fact, all of these problems. This is why eSource, I think, is gonna be a huge disruptive force. And most of my sites are switching to eSource right now. There's a good one called CREO, clinicalresearch.io. It's fantastic. So it automatically tells you who it's attributable to because every staff member has their own login. And then Legible, we talked about. Contemporaneous automatically timestamps. So if you don't need to bring a paper with you when you're doing vital sign, you just bring your phone. So it's 120/80, you put in your phone 120/80, put it back in your pocket. It's done. Timestamped, attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, because the FDA now considers this data original, right? They amended good clinical practice in 2016 for a lot of reasons. One of them was monitoring, for risk-based monitoring, which maybe we get into a little bit. I don't know. You guys probably discuss monitoring CRAs. If you guys are like your colleagues in the United States, you all want to be CRAs, is my guess. So CRAs, it's a very good career, and risk-based monitoring means the job of the CRA in theory is supposed to change as technology gets better. It's not going to be replaced. It's going to change. Okay. So instead of looking at 100% source data verification, maybe you're only looking based on a risk profile that the algorithm tells you what to do. These machines are taking over, guys, but it doesn't mean that you're being replaced either. Right? We're going to learn how to work with the machines. We're going to become one with the machines. Okay, so original, I told you, FDA considers it original. Accurate. Accurate is the one, this is the one where this is kind of why we need to monitor, CRA. Okay, because accurate, maybe you wrote it down wrong. One of the common mistakes is flipping the blood pressure, 120/80. So if you're in a hurry when you're in the EDC, you put 80/120. So now a CRA has to know, okay, this is probably not accurate. I'm going to query the coordinator. And you're supposed to see in the source, but maybe the source says the same thing. So now a CRA is going to have to think, okay, well, is this even possible? 80/120. Or another example, I was monitoring, because I'm also a monitor, a contract CRA as well. I was monitoring a site, and one patient within 1 week gained 75 pounds. And I said, how is this possible? And the coordinator, the source even said, well, they mixed the page with another patient. They were using a paper source. So they put the wrong paper in the wrong subject binder. So they mixed up two, but you know what? If you're a CRA, like a machine maybe would have triggered because it's out of window or something, but it really requires a human to be able to tell, okay, this is actually doesn't belong for this patient. This belongs with another patient. So that's an example of accurate. That's like a drastic example, but it happens all the time. And then complete. Complete is the last one from Alcoa. Okay, Alcoa-C. The complete came out in 2016. You cannot leave anything on the source document blank anymore. You can't leave the headers blank. You can't leave, oh yeah, and keep the questions coming. I see here. I see that you guys are chatting. You can't leave anything blank. It's either you put a line through it, an initial and date, or you put not applicable. You don't leave blank anything. Even if it asks about pregnancy test for a male. Okay, obviously we know that a male doesn't need a pregnancy test, even in 2021, but okay, you can't, according to the GCP, you can't leave that blank. You have to put not applicable. Right, so that's one of the things, and it gets into a little bit more complicated reasons than that, but you cannot leave anything blank. Everything's got to be complete. So now informed consent, this is something here. GCP, if you go to the, let's see, 21 CFR Part 50, so if you go to the Code of Federal Regulations for the United States, 21 Code of Federal Regulations Part 50, Subpart B, that's the entire, let's see, 4, 5, it's just like 10 pages, 6 pages of exactly what the FDA would like to see in informed consent. Now, with the FDA, and it's probably very similar to the Indian regulatory agencies, they're not very clear about it, about anything. Okay, they are just, it's a mess. Okay, so really in 20 seconds is what you need to know. Patient needs to be in a private room with either the physician or another clinician or a study coordinator. All right, so they need to be in a private room. You can't consent 50 people at once, one-on-one. Okay, they have to know that it's a volunteer. They need to know that this is not the informed consent is not a contract that they're signing. Okay, because patients often think that signing an informed consent form is like signing a contract. It's not. It's not. It doesn't. The patient can withdraw at any time. Plenty of time is left for the patient to ask questions. Here's an important one. The site needs to demonstrate that the patient understands all the risks and benefits and potential side effects of the study. And you have to document this. So how do you document the fact that a patient understood everything about the study? Well, you have to have a process of consent, right? And this is a simple, could be a few paragraphs. Who did the consent with the patient? So remember, attributable. Who did it? Somebody has to do it. You can't just say the site consented the patient. Who? How many people? Even if it's 2 people, who? Which one? Both, one, or none? Maybe none. Some places do none. That's not okay. You have to document who did it, what, specifically what did the patient ask? Okay, maybe they asked nothing. Maybe they understood. You have to write all these details. Okay, any concerns the patient had, what time you started, what time they stopped. They're given a copy of the consent to take home with them. They're encouraged to discuss participating in the study with their family before they make a decision. And no procedures for the study are done until the consent form is signed. And I know they have to be strict in India now, because about a decade ago, it was all over the news there and here. A lot of informed consenting issue problems in India. So I know that the regulatory agencies now, this is number one most important thing for them, is this informed consent. I know this. Question, are there any softwares that have ready templates for Alcoa-C? eSource has this built in. They have to be customized for the protocol, all right? But when you use eSource, the headers on the source are automatically filled out. So it knows which patient it is, so the headers are filled out. But you can't really have a template for Alcoa-C because it all depends on the protocol, and it depends on what you're doing with the patient for that visit. So it depends on the visit. So the source for a study, you need to have a source document for every visit. They're different. So a screening source is different than a randomization, is different from a visit 3, different from an early termination. They're different. So there's not really a software outside of eSource. I think eSource is going to take care of a lot of this because the eSource, the vendor, usually makes the source, but it's whose responsibility is it to verify that the source is correct? It's not the vendor. They're just getting paid to do a job. Who? It's the coordinator. It's not going to be your PI. If they're like, my PI's here, they're not going to look at this. This is you guys. So you're getting trained for this. And this is an entire industry, multiple billion-dollar industry being funneled into you guys so you guys can know this stuff and make sure. Clinicians are busy. They see here in the US, they see 100 patients a day in their office. India, probably even more. All right. So we can't expect physician to do this. It's you guys, coordinator, CRA, not the vendor. Responsibility goes on you. Here's a trick I learned. If you accept responsibility for everything, your career will be secure for the rest of your life. I'm telling you this. The people who defer responsibility, they're the ones who get cut first. Right? When this pandemic first started in March, you know what these research clinics, who they cut first? The people that only did one thing. Data entry, you're gone. Patient recruitment, not right now. We don't need it. We don't know what's happening. You know who stayed? The person who knows how to do a little bit of everything. Because right now you don't need perfect. You just need somebody to do everything. Right? So that if you can do that and take on responsibility, you're good. So remember, 21 CFR Part 50, it's the United States Code of Federal Regulations for Informed Consent. Pretty much every country is modeled on this as well. I'm sure in India, it's probably even more strict than the United States because of what happened recently, but it's pretty strict in the United States too. Let's see what else we have here. Any more questions? If you got questions, put them in the chat. I don't even know what time it is. Let me know if I'm going too long. AE, you guys know what's AE, adverse event, serious adverse event? You know this. You know how to document this. Anything. Here's the 2 red flag. I'm going to break this down to you. The biggest mistake new people make in research is they assume that an AE is not related to the drug, and so it's not important. All right. Well, first of all, maybe you're right. You're probably right. But how do you know is number one. Okay. And if everyone has that same mentality, then we're never going to discover any new side effect because everyone's going to assume this is not related to drug and that's it. You're done. And people are going to take the shortcut because then they're going to say, well, this is not really related. So no, everything's related. Okay. If you're at a restaurant and you choke on the sandwich that you're eating, it's adverse event. Even though if you're in a study, that's an adverse event, even if it's not related to the study drug. Okay. Another thing is when it comes to adverse event is underreporting. There's 2 things, underreporting or overreporting. And do you know that the sponsors track everything with technology now? So they have, when there's a study, they have all of their research clinics on a map and they look how many patients, what's the average AE reported per patient? So if the average is like 4, and then your site, the average is like 20, you're over-reporting. You're probably being overly ambitious with writing everything's the AE. Okay, most likely, and that's not the most likely one. The most likely one is the under-reporting. So the average is 4, and your site have 0 AE for every patient. I mean, I don't know about you, but I find that rather odd that in a 12-month study, that this patient had 0 adverse event. Okay, I mean, even today I had probably 3 myself. Yeah, I'm not in a study. I had headache, stomach ache. Okay, there's adverse event all the time. So another reason with adverse event is it shows that how much time the PI and the staff is paying attention to the patient. That's called PI oversight, principal investigator oversight. Very important. All right. So that's AE. I won't bore you with that. Concomitant medications. Right. Please, please, please. If you don't do anything else, just inclusion, exclusion, and con meds. There are in every protocol prohibited medications every single time. Sometimes it's for safety reasons. There's contraindicated with the investigational product. And sometimes it's for the data reasons. This drug works too well, so we don't want these patients in the study because it's not fair to compare our investigational product to this. Both are bad, but obviously the safety one is the worst because you can potentially seriously harm a patient by doing that. So there's a reason why in the protocol, there's a list of prohibited medication. Don't ignore this. And don't assume that the brand name and the generic name, double check. In the protocol, usually they put only the generic name. So you got to know, okay, well, if they're using a brand name, you got to Google it. We have Google, we have everything at our fingertips now. Okay, so concomitant meds, progress notes, protocol deviations. You guys know about IWRS systems, how to randomize, how to screen a patient. These are the system. It's not that fancy. Patient reported outcomes. One of the this is not a big deal, but patients have to create a diary. Myself, I'm in a study right now. Honestly, I'm not entering my diary. I'm not, and I know I have to do it. It's right there. I haven't done it since December 27th. And the coordinator hasn't called me. They haven't called me. So I'm not going to do it because I forgot already. How many days can I forget? It doesn't matter anymore. So you have to contact the patient every day. Remind them, hey, you're in a study. You got to do this diary. All right. This is very important. It takes 2 minutes of your time, but please do it. Please do it. The more that you're vigilant, the better the patient is going to respond. Okay. If you just leave them and say, hey, I'll see you in a month, make sure you do your diary every day. You think they're going to do it every day? Maybe the first 2 days. I did it 3 days and then I got bored with it. Okay. So that's one of the things you got to make sure. Queries. Okay. Queries within EDC system. Make sure that you answer queries quickly. CRA, you have to have a relationship with your CRA and you have to have a good relationship with your CRA. Sometimes the CRAs can be a little aggressive and it could be very intimidating if you're new. Okay, if you're a fresher, it could be intimidating to deal with some of these aggressive CRAs. Don't worry too much about it. Just if you know the protocol, just stick to the protocol because the CRA, they could interpret everything. At the end of the day, if you know you're following the protocol, don't be intimidated by the CRA. Most of the time, the CRA is on your side and the CRA is there to help you. And if they know that you're new, maybe just be honest with them. Hey, I'm a little bit new, but I'm quick to learn. Please be patient with me and tell me what I'm doing wrong. That's going to let the CRA know to spend a little bit more time with you at your site and things like that. So they could be a little bit more proactive. Screen fails, randomizations, you guys know about that. There's only a few visits in research. It's a screening, it's randomization, it's a regular visit, and it's an early term or a loss to follow-up. Okay, those are the only 5 kind of patient visits in a study. That's it. And most of those are routine study visits. So remember, make sure your doctor continues to be a physician, and he or she is going to make the determination if a patient should be early terminated for any reason or not. Sometimes the sponsor can also decide this. And sometimes, of course, the patient themselves can decide that they don't want to do it. So those 3 people have the right to withdraw a patient from a study. Okay, the physician, the sponsor, and the patient themselves, right? So make sure usually it's the physician that's making the decision. 90% of the time, it's the physician. You guys know regulatory? There's a lot you got to know about regulatory. 1572 form. You guys have 1572 form in India? Or what? You have to have something else. No? It's probably called something different. But here in the United States, we have a 1572 form. It's basically a statement of the investigator, what protocol. These are all regulatory documents that are filed with the regulatory agencies. Okay. Investigator brochure, IRB, ethics committee's approval, protocol signature page. Every time there's a protocol amendment, you have to do a retraining on the protocol every single time. Most likely, whenever there's a protocol amendment, there's also going to be an informed consent amendment. All right. And they're going to be very strict with you guys. You got to make sure that you're reconsenting all the patients. Each time there's a new informed consent amendment, you have to re-consent the patients. All right. So, and then there's on average 3 to 4 protocol amendments per study. And one of the biggest findings I see as a CRA is there's been an amendment and the staff is not trained on the new protocol, right? So then I have to, as a CRA, train the staff. It's better if you train the staff, because what if the amendment was something that changed the protocol? That's the definition of an amendment, and you're not following this amendment. Now you have protocol deviation until somebody discovers that it's that the training wasn't done. Delegation of authorities log, also very important. All right. Everybody who's has any duty in the study from the research site level needs to be on here with their signature, their initials. Why? For the ALCOA, attributable. All right. So initials, signature, so that when we initial and signature in the study, we know who we can match the signature to, whose signature is this. Okay, so that's delegation of authority log. When a new person joins a study, the PI needs to train, or somebody from the site needs to train that new person. When somebody leaves the site, they need to put an end date on their name, and the PI needs the initial date. Very important. Deviation log, you're going to get that. Serious adverse events, you guys know. SUSARs, you know SUSAR, suspected unexpected serious adverse reaction. Suspected unexpected serious adverse reaction. It's basically a SAE that's unexpected. But they're suspecting that it's related to the investigation of product, and that's the sponsor. So suspected unexpected serious adverse reactions, meaning the sponsor doesn't expect this. They didn't expect this to be a SAE, but now they're seeing it's a SAE. Maybe we're going to see this with the vaccines, okay? Because they didn't do any long-term study with the vaccine, with the COVID vaccine. They only did like a 12-week study. So what happened when we do a 9-month study with safety and efficacy? We're going to see a lot of SUSARs, I think. A lot of unexpected, suspected unexpected, because they didn't get these things in the first studies. This is why you need long-term safety and efficacy studies to find all these things. SOP, site operating procedures. Okay, site standard operating procedures. You guys need this. I'm going to go through the sections, but it's introduction, definition, research contract, research budget, site selection visit, IRB. It's a lot of stuff. My SOP for my site is now 50 sections, and it keeps growing based on when monitors request something. Then we add to our SOP. Okay, again, generalist. You have to understand how all these things relate. It's not just about one thing. Okay, comprehensive, guys. Comprehensive. It's everything. Everything, how it relates. If you know how things relate to one another, you're going to be good. If you only know one thing and your colleague knows another thing, then somehow it's going to work, but really you need somebody who knows how they connect. Who's that going to be? That's going to be a generalist. And that should be you. All right. And quality assurance, really every site should have that. And then we get into chapter 5, monitoring, but you guys are going to have me on for another day for that one, because we go through site dynamics. It took that long. So this is, if you guys have questions, let me know. Can you tell us more about entrepreneurship? Of course, this is my favorite topic, entrepreneurship. How can one start their own clinic? you need a physician. All right, first thing. And then you're going to say, well, how can I talk to the physician, Dan, if I don't have a study, blah, blah, blah. All right, go to clinicaltrials.gov. There's millions of studies. Okay, so go find one, find a physician. You have to have a target. You're not just going to go, blindly to sites. You have a target. Okay, this guy is a cardiologist. So I'm going to look for cardiology studies before I go meet with him or her. Could be her. I'm going to go look for cardiology studies, and then I'm going to show them, hey, I can get these studies. I don't have it, but if you join me or if you want to do research with me, I can get these studies free. Maybe not this one, but I can get you, look, there's like a million studies. What do you want? We can do COVID right now. Everybody, they're giving COVID to everybody like candy for the studies. They don't have enough patients, guys. This is serious stuff. They need more patients. People who have not had COVID, people who have had COVID, people who have had COVID and recovered, people who have had COVID and recovered and got COVID again, people who have had COVID and had some kind of adverse event. They have study for everything, right? Just go clinicaltrials.gov. I'm sure there's an Indian equivalent also. But clinicaltrials.gov is big. It's the worldwide one. But I'm sure in India they have their own too. Look for these things and start emailing, start networking, go on LinkedIn. All right, LinkedIn is big time for you guys. You guys all should be on LinkedIn networking. That's entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is how do you do something? You see a problem. The problem is there's not enough patients in research. The solution? Well, we need to get these more physicians interested in research. So the solution, go talk to more physicians and tell them that you're going to start a clinic with them in their own office. You're going to get the studies. You know about Alcoa. They have no idea what Alcoa means. They know about cardiology. They don't know about delegation of authority. That's you. That's for you to do, right? Physicians don't have time for this. That's where you come in. It's literally billion-dollar industry, multiple billion-dollar. Trillion, maybe. I don't think trillion yet, but it will be. With inflation, it will be trillion. Isn't it difficult for the fresher to get an investigator? I don't know. I think you have the answer to that. It is if you think so, and it's not if you think so. Of course, everything's difficult. Writing this book was difficult, too. I never wrote a book before. I'm a fresher author. Fresher. Look at this guy, fresher. Okay, I wrote a book. Who cares? If you really want it, you're gonna do it. If not, then you're not. Then you can be an employee. There's nothing wrong with that either. You can be an intrapreneur. I was talking to my Patreon member. You can be like a intrapreneur. So it's like a entrepreneur, almost the same, except you're not risking money because you're getting a paycheck. But your attitude is the same as an entrepreneur, but you're working for a company. So you can do like a mix, like a hybrid. That's a good too. Every company needs entrepreneur. My companies, I love to hire entrepreneurs. They're fantastic. I would probably be an entrepreneur too if it wasn't for entrepreneur. There's nothing wrong with any of those. Employee, entrepreneur, intrapreneur, it's all about what you want. And if you got to get rid of the mindset that you're a fresher, because your doctor, you know more than your doctor about research, most likely if they're research naive. You know more. You may not know more about science and medicine, but you know more about research than a research naive physician. So to him or her, you're not a fresher. They're a fresher, not you. That should be your confidence, is that they don't know anything about research. They know how to be a doctor, but that's it. Majority of physicians are research naive. There you go. But good question, Sarah. I don't see you on here, but good question. We got a lot of people. Anything else? Hopefully it's inspiring. Are there any risks of being research naive? Of course, the risk is that you don't know what you're doing and you're going to make mistakes. I mean, again, the mistakes are unavoidable. Try to avoid anything involving patient safety in a negative way. Just avoid that, okay? Even if you have to take the patient out of the study, if you're not sure, better take them out of the study, making mistakes on that end, than hurt the patient. That's the risk. The risk is that research naive, you don't really know what you're doing. Respect patient safety, that's all. That's really the biggest concern. Everything else is just a data point. You can mess up on a data point for the pharmaceutical company, sure, but nobody's going to feel sorry for them. They're going to survive. They'll be okay. The patient, if you harm them, you got to sleep at night yourself, first of all. Forget about anything else. You have to go to sleep at night and rest well. So don't do anything to harm patients. Just pay attention to that. As an entrepreneur, what are the areas that need the most attention for clinical trial? Right now, it's technology. Anything to make, I think the next big thing, I'm going to write an article on LinkedIn, and I think it's going to get a lot of views from sponsors, and I think a lot of them are going to reach out to me for consulting. But I think there's going to be a convergence of eSource and EDC, because right now there's a lot of wasted time with writing in the source and then entering in the EDC, electronic data capture. I think with eSource, you putting it in your phone, it's automatically going to be synced to an EDC. I think that's going to save a lot of time. Believe it or not, nobody's doing that. I think another thing is around the area of patient confidentiality and medical records. I think something along the line of blockchain will be good. Somebody smart is going to figure that out and do very well for themselves in the process. And also training and onboarding clinicians who are research naive. That's an area that needs the most attention. Why? Again, we need more patients. We've never had this many studies. We've always had a problem enrolling patients. The industry, 90% of studies are behind on enrollment. What's going to happen when you increase the supply of studies? It's going to be even worse. So more clinicians, okay, and then technology, definitely merging the source with the EDC is a game, I think could be a game changer. There's people working on that already. And then maybe around the virtual trials and sharing records confidentially through blockchain. I think that is going to be something that somebody's going to do in the next 5 years. And it should be one of the big companies like Metadata. I'm sure they're working on this, or Viva Systems. But the problem with these big companies is they reach a market where they're making profit. They've maximized profit, and they just continue to do this instead of reinvesting into projects that might fail. So this is why you always see companies get big, really big. Maybe they even become monopoly, but then they don't innovate, and another company comes and takes their market. It happens all the time, And for the best companies, they last like 30 to 50 years. And for the average company, it's like 7 or even less. But yeah, good questions. Yeah, I knew it's about entrepreneurship in India. No wonder it's my number 3 market. We got to make it number 2. We got to beat Canada. How are you letting Canada beat you in buying my book? Look, you guys have billion people. Canada only, I don't know, 100 million. They're Canada number 2 for the book. You guys, India, we got to get India number 2. You guys share this on your social network. Okay, this book with all your friends on Facebook and Twitter. I don't know what you guys use. Everything. Instagram, TikTok. You guys like TikTok? Who else is there? Instagram. Instagram is still watching, but a lot of them are bored. They fell asleep.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you could just tell us a little more about your website, Clinical Trials Guru. We've heard a lot about it. So.
Oh, okay. I mean, I started in 2010, this thing. I started it when I was a research clinic. I was a study coordinator in 2005 I thought I was going to go to medical school. I didn't have good enough grades. So I tried to force it. I was like, I'm going to work in research and they're going to take me to medical school because I'm the only one doing research and they don't care about my grades. That wasn't true. I couldn't get in there. So I took over the research clinic. From a coordinator, became a director, then I became the owner of the clinic. And then I didn't know anything. Like I was learning everything. There was no book, there was no YouTubes, there was no Zoom. So I tried to Google everything I didn't know and I couldn't find anything. So that just stuck in my mind, okay, well, eventually there's a need for this, right? Talk about entrepreneurship, there's a need for this. And in 2010, when I started, between 2005 and 2010, I started to build my site and my research clinic, not my website. I started to build it, hire employees, build systems, build standard operating procedure. So then it free up more time for me to focus on increasing opportunities. And I made this website because I thought it was going to attract patients. I really made the website. I thought it was going to attract patients. So my first videos were, what is an informed consent? What is an IRB? How are you safe in a study? The only people watching this video were other researchers who are trying to learn, like you guys, trying to learn about research. They're the only ones watching and sending me questions. So I thought, I would love to get patients, but they don't care about this, but other researchers do. So I started making the videos more for other researchers at that point. And it grew into a podcast and a bunch of now I do daily, I do live stream now. As technology change, I have to improve with the technology. Now there's new stuff like TikTok. I have to do more because they're younger people like you are discovering clinical research through TikTok. And I'm on there, but I need to use it more. So basically it was by accident, but the seed was planted by my own struggles. But then I tried to get it for patients, and I realized that the market told me otherwise, that it's patients don't care about this right now. And so I made it just for researchers, and it created a lot of opportunities for me. Like a lot of physicians started watching, hey, I want to open my own clinic. A lot of coordinator people want to be CRAs, so I created the CRA Academy. I never wanted to do any of this stuff. I never wanted to open an academy, but it's what the market tells you what they want, not you. That's my biggest lesson is the person who was asking me questions earlier about what I think. I mean, it's only what I think. I could be wrong. The only way to know is you have to test your assumption. Test. You have some ideas, test it, but the market might tell you that's not what they're interested in. And then you'll find out, if you test enough, you'll find out what's going to work for you and what's not. Just test. And I think it's never been easier to test with social media. You can write an article, you can write 2 different articles about 2 different topics within research, and post them on the same time and see which one gets more views, likes, comments. Now you have something. It costs you nothing to do this. It's free. It's just your brain power and some time. So that's how you can test as an entrepreneur, just with no money, just with time. So that's how we started that. But yeah, thank you. theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Make sure you guys subscribe on the email list. We do like monthly Zoom webinars. I know the time difference is you guys probably asleep. Well, no, India, no, it's morning there, right? So yeah, you would be asleep. Never mind. But if you want to, you can watch the replay. Or maybe you're awake, you can't sleep, and you could watch it like 3 a.m. So make sure you go subscribe, theclinicaltrialsguru.com, and let's help get this book number. Let's make it in India, okay? Bestseller. Because Canada is selling more than India, and you have 1 billion people. Canada, 100 million.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Good question. And it's never been easier to make a website either than now. When I started, it was actually harder, much harder. than 2010. Now it's easy. You don't even need to pay for anything. Thank you, Mari Mayorga. Somebody on Instagram's watching. They're still awake on Instagram. If you're awake on Instagram, smash the screen with your thumb. We want to see the hearts go, make the algorithms confused. Anybody else?
Good morning, sir. My name is Shreya, and I would like to ask you that we heard about this, that the pregnant ladies cannot take the COVID vaccination. What is the reason behind that?
You mean people are afraid to take the vaccine?
No, not people. I'm talking about the pregnant ladies. I'm talking about the pregnant ladies.
Yeah, because they haven't done studies. That's the problem with in most research studies. Pregnant women are excluded, so they have no idea what the effects are on pregnant women. It all starts from clinical research. If you go look on clinicaltrials.gov, it's going to be rare. If you find me a study, unless it's a study for pregnant women, you find me a study that allows pregnant women to be enrolled, I'll give you like a book for free or something, because and I'll ship it to India. It costs more than the book to ship it there. You're not going to find it. So this is why they're not allowing the vaccine, or they're not recommending the vaccine for pregnant women, because they're not doing studies, right? Same thing with the flu shot. Like, if it's not just for COVID, it's for any vaccine. They don't give to pregnant women because they don't do the studies on that. It's unethical to do the study on pregnant women, because technically the child needs to consent to, and they don't have a right to consent, or they have a right and they can't, is what the ethics committees would say, at least I think.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
But yeah, good question.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mary Mayorga. How's it going? I sent an email for you guys on Instagram. See, on Instagram, you guys need to follow on Instagram too, Dan Sfera, because I go live all the time and we network amongst the people watching the lives. So I try to connect people with the jobs. I know somebody watching, they send me their resume. I know what area they're in, and I know somebody like a clinic or an employer in the same area. I try to match them. Okay. I just think it's good to do this, and I think it's helps me in the long run as a business person too. Doing good is a good thing.
Any questions, students? Any other question?
I see Jay. Jay has a question. Or maybe Jay just saying hi. You have a great hair, Jay. Looking good. Hello? Somebody talking?
I think they don't have any other question.
Oh, okay.
Shifa?
Yes. Thank you so much, firstly, Mr. Sfera. You have been a great help. I'm sure it will really help us. So, good morning, everyone. I'm Shifa Siddiqui, student of MSc Clinical Research. I'm here to propose the word of thanks. Skip Pritchard, in The Book of Mistakes, mentioned that expressing thankfulness energizes, enhances, and empowers. Mr. Dan Sfera, it was a pleasure to have you with us today. thank you for taking out time from your busy schedule and sharing your extensive and excellent knowledge on practical aspects of clinical trial site level dynamics. You unveiled certain fascinating facts regarding entrepreneurship, be it how do trial sites work. You gave us a lot of insights about the good clinical practices, standard operating procedures, how the protocols work, informed consent form. That was really very nice of you, sir. Now, thank you so much once again, Mr. Safera, for enlightening us with tremendous information on the subject, which I'm sure will definitely help in our future endeavors. I would take this opportunity to thank our institute, NIMR, for organizing such a wonderful learning event, and especially our principal sir, Mr. Priyadarshan Patil, for permitting the same. Also thanking our respected faculty members for their valuable contribution in making this guest lecture successful. Last but not the least, thank you all the attendees and my fellow batchmates for being a part of today's session. Your time and attention is really commendable. With this, I would conclude today's webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we all leave, can we sort of start our videos on to have a final photo session, please? Thank you. Thank you all for your time. Thank you. Thank you, Dan, for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, guys.
Pleasure to have you.
Hopefully it inspires somebody out there, and
Yeah.
reach out to me anytime. We're global now, so thank you guys.
Yes.